Okay, so to introduce assignment 9, this is actually what a lot of people think of when they think of digital art. They think of digital painting. And it's basically just using Photoshop or using the computer, using a stylus and a tablet like they were traditional tools. And the way I'm going to show you those techniques and hope that you don't get too overambitious and too sucked into it, because it's still just a quick introductory assignment, is that I want you to limit your subject matter to an animal or a caricature. And I say celebrity caricature, but it could also just be a caricature of anyone you know.
Cool. So
Yeah, so you can do something as a gift, you can do, and you can make it as realistic as you like or as stylized as you like, but it cannot be outlines that are then filled in, right? It needs to be digital painting. So the difference between digital coloring and digital painting is that digital coloring happens behind clean outlines, right? Even if those outlines get replaced by color with color holds. Digital painting, you just work on top of a sketch and you're using brush strokes. And you're never containing things with clean outlines. So that's the one-page thing. If we look at the handouts we've used in the past, you'll see, come on, open it up, there we go. You'll see that what we've covered already is digital coloring, but this is digital painting. And digital painting can finish in lots of different ways, whereas digital coloring always has kind of line work and then some coloring solution. Digital painting, you might choose for it to be very abstracted by the end. And that's why it can be a caricature. It doesn't always have to be fully representational. But these are the basic steps for digital painting. Sometimes you'll start with just big colored shapes, depending on how you like to paint. Sometimes you'll start with kind of a pencil sketch that you build on top of. And part of it is we're going to have to build our own brushes. So all you're going to submit for this is the photo reference that you use, and then your finished digital painting, or as finished as it will be by the time we turn this in. And this is due on November 22nd, right? So we have one full class period to work on it. We have whatever time is left after presentation's next class period to work on it. And then we have the morning of the critique day to finish it off. And I'll be demoing it. So I need to pick something to do. I've done portraits for the last few semesters because they're challenging and interesting and I like doing them, but I haven't done an animal in a while. So I thought I might do that. The nice thing is when you're finding reference, let's see, why can't I just get regular animals from Google? Let's see, I'll look up young deer. There we go. So what's nice about it is that it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter what the size is as long as it looks clear enough to you, because you're going to be making all of your own pixels, right? You're just using this as reference. So we're not compositing, we are fully digitally painting. But all the things we've learned before, and of course you can caricature it, make it your own, is that silhouette matters. The outside shape matters. And I want something that's a little unusual looking. Let's see. Yeah, I was thinking something kind of like this. I even have my own photos because we have these all the time in our yard. So it doesn't need to be a very large one in order to be useful to you. So this is an artist selling their work. It's probably not great for me to do a digital painting of their work. But that's the one I like. Let's see. But as you replace everything with your own brushstrokes, you're going to see how it very quickly becomes your own. Now, if you do an animal, I ask that you do something from head to toe. And that is tricky. You can't just do the face of an animal. But if you're doing a portrait of a person, you can just do the head. Yeah, I think I might have to be more direct. So let's see. Young deer Creepy.
Creepy.
I know what I'm looking for.
I like the second one.
What are you looking
Cute.
for?
Oh my goodness, the second one is beautiful. Do it. The second one.
They want to make it look like a
This
snake.
one?
Yes.
No, it looks like it's a snake about to eat us.
Yeah.
I
love
You're
it.
the one that looked up creepy.
No, I know. I like these.
Oh, do the.
This one's great. No, this is the one.
Wow. That's the winner right
Is
there.
that even real? Those aren't real. Look at that.
It's a Chinese water dog.
It looks like a.
I love it. I'm doing that. All right.
Yeah, do a fennec fox. He's a jump dog.
This is a combination of everything.
How many
This is like a fox, a teddy bear, a deer, all put together.
How many references? I think.
Oh, that's a great question. How many references do you need? So for an animal, I mean, it totally depends. You need at least one to upload with the project. But if I'm doing a portrait, I'll actually try to do more than one reference, so I see their face from a few different angles, especially if I'm stylizing it. For this, I'm probably not going to get more pictures of Chinese water dogs looking like this, but I'm going to take liberties. With animals, you can take more liberties than with adults for various reasons. And it's because when we look at images of people, we're a lot more critical of them in terms of likeness than we are when looking at animals. All right, so how do we get started? Well, what I'm going to do is open up that reference, no matter how small it is, in Photoshop. And a lot of digital painting is about how you set it up. Okay? And you can look at different tutorials. Do I need all of this image? No. I especially don't need the copyright. I don't want to be reminded that I'm stealing from someone's work. But again, my goal is to do a caricature, make it my own, or at least a fully, new painting. I just cropped it to what I need. In fact, I might even use my compositing skills, right? And kind of take out some of this extra stuff as well. Because in order to not let you guys get too deep into this at the expense of your final project, I don't want you to do a background. So you can always add a background later. I just want you to do it on blank white, on empty space, okay, like a spot illustration. So I'm just going to clean this up quickly. Notice I'll have to make up the feet, and I might have to use reference for that, not to composite, but just so I know how those back feet might look, or I can just make them up. Okay, now I go to image size, and I see that this is only 5 by 7 inches by 72 pixels per inch. That is not going to cut it, right? So I'm going to make my own canvas, but like some of the videos we saw with the tutorials from the presentations, I'm going to put this in the upper right-hand corner. All right? So first, let me unlock the background layer, and then I'm going to create a new canvas under image, canvas size, and I'm going to tuck it into the upper right-hand corner, especially because I have room for my painting. There's nothing in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to make its size printable size. So we can print up to 17 by 22 inches. So that's as large as you would ever go. And it will look like this. That looks about right. But then you have to change the resolution. So you go to image size, and I'm going to change the resolution to our print resolution for the lab, which is 350. Now you don't want to make your resolution way higher than it needs to be, because that will slow everything down. It will slow every brush stroke down. So by making it 350, I'm basically painting at the size I want it to print. And that will ensure quality and efficiency within the program. Digital painting takes up a lot of internal memory because it's having to remember, we've set our Photoshop programs to remember 500 steps. And every time you touch the brush to the canvas, it's going to remember a new step. Yes, Sam?
We can do any image, right?
You can do an animal or a person. If you do an animal, you have to do from head to toe. If you do a person, you have to do their head. But you can stylize it, caricature it. All right, this is just to introduce you to these techniques and not get you too.
Little body or like airbrush?
In terms of caricature, caricature is just stylizing the representation. So whatever that means to you. I could make a big head on this
I
deer.
thought you meant like big head, little body.
But there are lots of different caricature styles, right? You can do a stylized portrait, in other words. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I need to make a new layer and fill it with white. It's a lot like digital coloring. So I'm going to have white, a clean layer of white behind everything. So I move that to the bottom and I'll label that blank white. I'm going to label my reference. And I'm going to put my reference above everything. So now everything else is going to go between these two, and I'm going to lock them. I'm going to lock my blank white layer, lock my reference layer. And because it's a reference layer, I probably want to get rid of the white space in it so that doesn't interfere with my painting. All right. So now, this is just like getting out a new piece of paper in my studio at home and then pinning up some printouts or some photos of what I want to draw and paint up in the right-hand corner somewhere of my drafting table. Next, and you don't need to fill up this whole thing. You can just paint it smaller here, but realize this is your print resolution. So the bigger you paint it, the larger it will be able to print. Next, I'm going to build in my sketch layer. And do take some time figuring out what you want to paint, before next class. And the next class we can work on this. So for my sketch layer, there's a few things. I generally, whenever I do something that's referring to the real world, I'll do a basic shapes study, right? Some people like to kind of scribble it. I like to do a basic shapes analysis. So what I'll do on this new blank layer is I'll use a brush. I'm just going to use a very standard brush that's pressure sensitive for size, 100% hardness, and I'm going to pick a pretty bright color, and I'm just going to trace, for now, on top of my reference, the biggest basic shapes, the ovals, the wedges, the rectangles, that show me the proportions of this very weird animal in this weird pose. And this goes way back to the beginning of the class. This is especially important if you're doing a human face. You want to map out where the features are, because that's what makes everyone's face unique. The tiny measurements between their nose and their upper lip, between their eyes and their hairline. Those shapes matter. Okay, now I know these are accurate. Show where the eye line is. It's not tracing, it's just mapping out the shapes. I might even change the angle of the head because I don't think it's very descriptive, but it gives me a good sense of the overall silhouette, right? Now I'm going to take that basic shapes layer and I'm going to move it and use it to position my painting. Using my compositing skills, I can make it larger. And if I'm going to do a caricature, which I am, already I can stylize it if I like. So I can use warp, and I can kind of move the head a little bit, maybe make the head a little bit bigger so it's strange. I'm just going to play around and have fun with it for this demo. And you can do this with human faces as well. It's fun to do it with celebrity caricatures because we've seen a lot of those faces so many times. They can take a lot of manipulation and still be recognizable. Flare out that back leg a little bit. All right, so I just manipulated it just by warping, but you see how all the proportions remain consistent. It still feels like it has believable anatomy. Now, basically what I just did, let me pull up that handout that's available for you under links. Basically, I just did this little sketch. Now I'm going to start filling in some sketchy flat color. And I'll do that on a new layer. I'm going to call it local color. And I'm going to steal it right from my reference. And that's going to be all I have time for in this demo. So what do? I'm just going to use my regular brush. But I'll show you something cool. If I hold down Option, I can steal the color and then start painting with it right away. But I want that brush to be bigger. Right? And I'm going to start blocking out some of these big shapes.